Hey everyone. It's great to see everyone this Monday.
Hello.
We're gonna give some time to let people come into the space before we get started. And so we hope you enjoy our song that we have playing here. You're officially tagged.
Hi.
Hi everyone. Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of When It's Enough, where we dive into self-love,
relationships,
owning your truth,
and spiritual growth.
and I'm Sarah Alley,
Jasenia.
and we're diving in today into this topic of intimacy. It feels so cozy.
Hi, John.
Also, maybe it sounds scary. Hi, John.
I know that word, right?
I'm like,
Intimacy.
either you saw this word and you were like, ooh, what are they talking about, right? Like, let's get cozy up in it, right? Or you were like, oh, no. You know, like, nah, don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, right? Let's be honest. Intimacy can be...
intimacy.
It's intimacy into me see, you know?
Yeah.
Into me see.
And it starts from that
From that place.
From that place. Intimacy.
Right. Intimacy. And so, you know, one where, you know, I would love to hear from you, for those of you who are tuning in, or if you catch us on the replay, to let us know in the comments, and I'm going to put this in the comment section, to let us know what intimacy means to you, or what you think the one of the critical elements that has to be there in order for intimacy to occur. Like what is foundational for intimacy? I would love to hear from you. So I'm dropping that in the comments right now.
I would love to hear from guys. Like,
love to.
Oh
John, what do you think about intimacy?
Yeah,
Come on, John.
Tell us, John. Come on. And any other guys that are out there, you know, listening, please let us know what you think about intimacy. I would love to hear from you guys. And of course, women too. But I'm more curious as to what men think about intimacy.
Yeah, because, and we're going to talk about this. So what we're going to talk about today are some of the myths and misunderstandings. And what's interesting is how those myths and understandings, because we're talking about this, how they are for women versus men, most likely. What is intimacy exactly? What does it look like? How does it play out? We are going to share what we think are some of the critical elements to build a foundation of intimacy. And also, we're going to talk about like fear of intimacy. We're going to touch on that a little bit, and the spiritual connection. Like like what exactly is intimacy about? How does it connect at a deeper level? And I think we might share some things that maybe you haven't thought of before, because as I sat with intimacy and really like dove deep into my own experiences of intimacy and what I'm learning and how I'm growing in intimacy, some things came forward for me that I was like, whoa, I'm looking at intimacy in many different ways, especially, moving through relationships. So, and it's ever evolving. So I would love for you guys to join the conversation. Also, drop us some hearts if you're here. I'm letting you all know.
So we might not cover all that we said today. So we might have a second part, but
Yes.
trust, maturity, care.
Oh, love that. Trust, maturity, care. That's good, John.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. So, what exactly is intimacy, Jacinia? How would you define it?
Well, intimacy is, I will define it as, I will say is the person.
Mm-hmm.
So you, me,
Mm-hmm.
we become oneness.
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 Ooh,
So it is oneness.
I like that.
So because
that.
intimacy is like it says, it goes deep into really knowing, right?
Yeah.
Into really diving into the two, but the two become one, and it's the only way for me that intimacy can happen. It's when we both become one. So the oneness.
I love that. I love that. Some of the things I wrote down for myself, just some words that came to mind when I was thinking about intimacy, was closeness and connection, surrender and authenticity, communication with clarity and truth. And it's a process of healing because it brings forth our wounds as well as holds space for our wounds.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So also, it's grounded, merging of two, emotionally connected and supported, to be seen, by who we truly are.
Yes.
To be seen.
Yeah.
Validated, connection, belonging.
Deep belonging.
Intimacy
creates deep belonging. Yeah.
So we're talking about conscious intimacy, right? Because the conscious intimacy is how you, when you're conscious, that is a oneness, and when you're in oneness, you can be connected into one. And this is what all the things that we're saying, it applies to that, because that's how we are conscious. Right. Because we know that in order to have that intimacy with your partner, all of these steps have to be in that relationship, in that intimacy. It's a must.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I would even say, like, when it comes to love itself in intimacy, right, the oneness is like that agape love. Like, if we think about what the different expressions of love are, there's self-love, there's romantic love, and then there's that brotherly love, that agape love. And that's the oneness part, is being able to access oneness can allow you to deepen into intimacy when it comes to self-love and when it comes to romantic love. So, if people get, like, one of the things I would say is, like, if intimacy is something that is uncomfortable, like when it comes to love, like maybe self-love feels uncomfortable or unsettled in you, or, romantic love, right? We can all connect to oneness. We can all connect to that agape love.
Yeah.
And so to start there and allow yourself to explore what intimacy looks like in that level of oneness.
Yeah. So it's presence, and that presence is sustaining that energy, right? That energy that is going to arise between the two, but it becomes one.
Yeah.
And this is why, for me personally, intimacy, it's an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
So we cannot be open with just anyone. I will say me myself, and I cannot just have anyone and be intimate with someone if I don't feel all that entitles to have an intimacy relationship.
Yes.
It's devotion, unconditional love, honesty, being vulnerable, communication, understood, accepted, and boundaries.
Definitely has boundaries.
Boundaries, yes.
And I will speak to this unconditional love part because that's something I've been exploring for myself. And a term that I've been using now is unconditional regard for someone. Because when I think about unconditional love, like that is that all source, all powerful love. And when you're in relationship with people, there are always going to be conditions. And so to have unconditional love in a relationship is quite hard because there are conditions that are there. But to have unconditional regard, which is that mutuality, that respect, that mutual care, right? And I love the word devotion because it's really about being devoted. And even to think about the word devotion, like that's a term that gets manipulated a little bit, for all of our like super romantic, like poets out there, talking about devotion. But when we look at it from a more spiritual depth, it's really about how you're in service to someone else, to someone else's soul, right? The spirit of what they carry, of who they are, which is like their authenticity. It's like I'm in service to who you are and holding that space and being committed to that, right? Which is a whole other level and a whole other different way of looking at devotion from this place of like obligation or something that's gonna, like responsibility or feels weighted. It's like it's really about how we show up in service to one another, right? And I care about you and I care about your ability to shine and be who you are and have the space for who you are in your wholeness. That's real devotion.
And it comes with communication.
Yes.
Communicating.
Huge.
What you're looking for, what you're wanting, if we're both on the same page in order for the energy to be exchanged, in order for that connection to happen, in order for that oneness to be, right? And to become.
Right.
Because if there is no communication and you just go into without saying, what you want, what is needed for you to come into that intimacy place, that space. So it has to be there. Has to be communication. There has to be boundaries because there is a point where you're like, no, I don't like this. Yes, I do like this. Is being meeting both, like we were talking about last time, is our topic last time that we were talking about. I just threw a blank. What the heck?
What was it? Hold on. I can tell you. We're live. What was it? It was so good. Reciprocity.
I'm like, reciprocity. So yes. It's a must, in order to get there. Yeah.
So think about what are the myths and misunderstandings of intimacy. Okay.
Well, let's start because the myths and misunderstandings starts by how we define intimacy, right? But women versus men, and
but that's the myth. I mean, the myth is that is physical. Like people go straight to physical intimacy.
Like I was looking
straight to the physical. Sex. That's what it is.
Sex. Yeah. Like what I was looking, and I was searching, and I'm like, okay, well, most men, like when you ask most men, I'm not saying all men think the same, but most men, you ask them, what's intimacy? The first thing they go to is the physical and sex.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Yeah. Their mind goes straight to that. And then you ask
women,
and what do we say?
Emotions. Feelings. It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that.
Mhm.
Another misconception, and we're going to dive more into what intimacy really is in these parts, because it's a lot fuller than just emotions and physicality. There's a lot there. But there's also this idea that intimacy is chemistry. Like people put those and interchange those two together, and those are two totally separate things.
Chemistry is attraction.
It's connection.
Yeah.
It's like straight up attraction, connection. That's all it is.
I don't think attraction is connection.
It's connection, chemistry.
How?
No, chemistry is connection.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also attraction. It's attraction meets connection, chemistry.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I don't think.
Why?
Why? Because when you're attracted to someone,
Yeah.
you're just attracted by physical.
Right, but that's
When
part
you-
of chemistry.
Chemistry.
Right.
Yes.
That I'm saying.
In order to
the
connect.
components of chemistry, but it's also connection, because it's how you actually connect in that attraction.
Okay, but it's just like a superficial way. But to me, connection
It's
is
just
more
like
deep.
it's just superficial.
No, I cannot.
I wouldn't.
cannot just
Okay, I
connect
wouldn't
by-
say that. I
by
wouldn't say that
chemistry.
chemistry is superficial, but it's definitely like a layer. It's the first layer, right?
Okay,
Intimacy
fair.
is what,
Okay.
like, if we're talking
Now-
about the, like, we're at a
Okay.
level.
Yeah.
It's got chemistry, and then it's like fucking intimacy. It's like
Okay.
everything that, like,
Okay.
right, like that's the roots to the
Okay.
tree, right? Like
To get
chemistry
into
is just
connection.
right.
Okay.
Right, but
Now, okay.
yeah, but chemistry has to have some type of connection. Like if you actually look up the definition of chemistry, it will tell you that it's about connection. It has to, because how are you going to connect?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think to connect, I don't know. I just cannot connect by looks. So I don't know. But okay, let's go.
but chemistry is not just about looks; it's about attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And attraction has its own. We'll do something on attraction,
Yeah.
y'all. So attraction has its own complexities, right? But it's both. I think it's both. How I would look at chemistry is it's attraction along with connection. But then intimacy takes that connection much deeper into all of these different elements.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Intimacy is way deeper.
Yeah,
No
way deeper.
doubt about it.
It's also confused. Intimacy is often confused or put in the lane of intensity, and intensity is toxic. It's toxicity.
Who wants to have anything?
It's like I've heard this term used quite a few times, and it's not about intensity. It might feel intense, and if intimacy feels intense, we're going to talk about that. That's because there's some other stuff there that has a lot to do with the attachment. So and there's this misconception that when it comes to intimacy, that like it should come easily, or like it should be there. And intimacy takes time. It's like, and Stefan, I remember him saying in one of his videos that intimacy, like I thought it was interesting because he used this term of like thinking of it as like the mechanics, that you might have to, it might feel more like you're being like you going through the mechanics of it in the beginning, because intimacy is something that has to be built in the breadth and the depth of a relationship. Those are my words, not his, but in how he was describing it, as like in the breadth and the depth, right? That it's built. And so it can turn from, feeling like I'm really trying at this thing, and then it shifts into what feels natural the more that two people open up. So just to say that intimacy takes time to grow and to build and evolve over time. And it's about our willingness, right? The willingness and that staying power to stay in it and to continue to open up with these critical elements, these foundational pieces for intimacy. So what do you think needs to be there? Like what are the key elements you think need to be there for intimacy to happen?
Like I said, is the being vulnerable.
Yes.
The being seen.
Yes.
And the being accepted as who we are.
Yes.
And I have to say also boundaries.
Total boundaries.
Boundaries, it has to be there. It has to be communicated.
Yeah.
It has to be set, because you don't want to just get into intimacy and then it's not respected. It has to be respect too.
I have three things for intimacy. And my first one, and you said one of them, my first one is self-love. And self-love means boundaries. Like that's where we learn boundaries, is when we have self-love for ourselves. And boundaries are like the distance or the space of which I can love you and myself at the same time. That's what a boundary is, and that's all what self-love is. So self-love has to be there. Trust is foundational when it comes to intimacy. So intimacy can't go anywhere really if trust is not there.
Trust is a must.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you think about all the components of trust, right? Like how you are consistent. Consistency is how we build trust. How we show up, honesty, truth, right? Those components about building trust with someone.
Yeah.
And then vulnerability.
And it's why you cannot get to that place unless those, are met.
Exactly.
It's why it has to be built.
Yes. Yeah. And when it comes to vulnerability, that's really about letting those heart walls drop and lower. And it takes time, I think that's the part of intimacy, because like I said, the word that came to me is it's a healing process, intimacy.
It is a healing
process. It's like how we chip away at those walls and really let them go down, but we have to have the willingness to actually do that. So what does intimacy look like in a relationship for you? Like how does that play out?
Intimacy can come, like you said, when there is trust, but also knowing your love language. What's your love language? Yeah. It's like knowing, like for me, my love language is, meaningful. No, what was it?
So there's touch. So love languages are touch, acts of service, affirmations, words of affirmations.
That's the mine.
Acts of service.
It's that
gifts,
time.
Quality time.
Quality time.
Yeah.
That's
quality time.
I forgot about the quality. Quality time is my love language.
Yeah.
So, and then my second one is touch.
Yeah.
So that makes me think that if there is quality time, it means that it has to be integrated, the trust, the honesty, the communication, the talking, that that space where I can feel seen, where I can feel like like there is a connection between the two, that we're becoming the one, because we're communicating in an open, vulnerable space and place, that where we both can become one.
Exactly.
So you have to know your love language, you have to communicate, and you have to be vulnerable enough. And like you said, it comes with healing.
Yes.
If you're not healed, because most of us, we were raised, in an environment where you weren't shown love, where you didn't have like this ideal or this example of what a couple really is, what the how a relationship is supposed to be.
Hi, Eve.
So I didn't have that. So as the time goes by, you have to heal that. Yeah. You have to heal that in order to become and connect with that person in an intimate way.
Exactly.
So healing becomes and starts with you.
With you, yeah. So there's a breadth of things that come into what intimacy is, right? That it is not just physical, that's one element of it. It's not just sex, that's just one element of it. Emotions, that's a larger element of it. Let's be honest. But
I have to be honest.
It's also experiential intimacy, which is like adventure. It's like how you play, how you explore, how you dive into new things, how you get out of your comfort zones with one another and in connection with one another. It's intellectual intimacy, right? Like how you share in your values and concepts and beliefs and all of those things, how you are intellectually stimulated by one another. That is a level of intimacy. There's spiritual intimacy, right? Like how you do your faith together, how you share your spiritual practice with one another, which
That's a turn on.
exactly, it's a huge turn on. Oh my God, yes. How you walk in your spirituality, how you share of that, you know, like that is like really enriching. And yeah,
like come on, man, like
it's gonna be
for guys, like being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak.
right. Well,
Oh my
vulnerability is not weakness.
It's not weakness.
It's strength and
It's
power.
Strength and power,
Yeah.
and showing up as who you are,
Yeah.
because you want to be seen too.
Yeah.
And you know, communicating what you want to a woman, obviously you have to feel. You have to feel trust.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah.
You know, by that other person,
Yeah.
in order to be vulnerable and open, because if there is no trust, that cannot happen. That is not weakness. It's not.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, oh my God, I just like, oh.
Yeah, like
it's the most
men out there.
thing.
You want the keys to a woman's heart is vulnerability.
Yes.
Right? Like they say, the key to a man's heart is through his stomach and other things. For a woman, it's vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we really uncover in emotional
because
intimacy.
it's emotions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, and if we were looking at this as like a triangle, like if we're going from the top down of what's most important and what is, I mean, all of it's important.
Yeah.
But like, it's the emotional experience, intellectual, spiritual, all that stuff is what is most important.
It's the essence
it's
in order
the essence
to get.
of, right, because that's how you're going to really be able to create something that's going to be lasting. Like those pieces really have to be there. And then you grow into the physical and sex side of intimacy. And what's interesting is, like, I was talking to a good friend of mine who's been with her partner for, like, I think they've been almost 12 years.
Oh, nice.
And she still talks about how their level of intimacy when it comes to the physical side, right? Like to sex and connection, it's still growing. Like there's still more stuff that they are growing more into. And I found that fascinating, right? And I think that so much of intimacy is how we carry curiosity. Like the minute that curiosity exits the building and we stop being curious about the person that we are in relationship with is the moment that intimacy dies.
It dies, yes. It's because we get comfortable.
Right.
You know, most of couples, they get just so comfortable and they're like, I'm already with her for 5 years. I'm already with him for 2 years. He's fine. We're fine. We don't have to communicate or say. She knows I love her. He knows I love her.
Right, yeah. We've been through this, whatever. Yeah.
No, it has to be built. Like the same way you guys were together from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's supposed to stay that way. You know, we have to maintain that because it's like a plant. We have to water it. We have to put soil. We have to do this. And we have to tap to it, you know, and all these beautiful things in order to grow. We cannot get comfortable. Yeah. No, the moment you get comfortable, the relationship ends. Yeah. For me.
Curiosity turns on the heat, y'all. Curiosity turns on the heat. So if you feel like something's going down, ask yourself, where does curiosity lie for you? I think it's really something to sit with. Yeah,
and it's beautiful to create that safe space that you can go to your partner and you can tell him anything and everything.
Because
without feeling judgmental, like he's not going to judge you, that he's not going to make you, you're being corny, like you're being too sensitive, or too of this, or too, no.
Here's how you know intimacy is playing out in your relationship, is when you can allow yourself to reveal, like, we're not broken, right? But we can walk around feeling like we have a brokenness. And it's in our ability to allow someone to see our brokenness and to hold space for that. How we really allow ourselves, right? Our laws and all. Years ago, but it's called Flaws and All. And I feel like that song, like if there was like a song of words to put with intimacy, like that is a really good song. Because it is about allowing someone to really see and witness you and your flaws, and who says, I love you, I care about you, I support you, I'm with you. Like that's when you know intimacy is really playing out in your relationship.
Yeah, because we are beautiful, imperfect persons.
Right.
You know, so it's beautiful to say it. And I know that the right person that's there for you, they're gonna see you.
They're gonna
and they're
see
gonna
you.
love you with all of it.
Right. And
With
if they're
all of
not
it.
seeing you,
Then that's not
don't hang out in that lane.
No.
You
don't
know?
don't
Yeah.
don't waste your energy.
Right.
You know, because you want to be seen.
Right.
Ultimately.
And intimacy isn't just some like, oh, wonderful like space to be in. It's, you know, I'm in this leadership class right now, and we just had our past weekend was about power and how vulnerability as like this foundation of power. Like vulnerability is where we actually discover our power. In relationship intimacy, like and how Taylor is my mentor, how she talks about this is like relationship is about friction. You know, it's like we rub up against one another, right? Especially with our wounds, because we're all carrying wounds, right?
Yes.
So our wounds rub up against one another, right? It creates things that feel uncomfortable or like things that bring up our fear, right? And it's through that friction actually that we grow intimacy.
Yeah.
Right? Like conflict, trauma, all those things that come to the surface, that's how you know intimacy is also unfolding, because that's where we find intimacy. Because again, it's about trust. How do you build trust? But by going through these hard moments of friction and being like, I'm still here, I'm in this, I'm with you, I'm going through this, right? That's where the intimacy really starts to foster.
Because we're really gonna trigger those emotions,
Yeah.
you know, from both sides. You know, he's gonna trigger something in me, I'm gonna trigger something in him.
Yeah.
But the most beautiful thing is to say it,
Yeah.
to communicate that and be like, you know what, this is how I'm feeling. I need you to help me, not be in the story that I'm creating in my head.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand it?
Yeah.
Obviously with a loving way, not you don't let your emotions and
right? Yeah.
No, just
Over time.
understanding that
Over
it's
time.
coming up. Something
Over
is
time.
coming up.
Yeah.
And you're creating this story.
Yeah.
And from those two places, you're like, okay, it's time to communicate this to my partner.
Yeah.
Hey, honey bunny. So this is what I'm like thinking and creating in my head.
Uh-huh.
Can you help me understand?
The story I'm telling myself is. Uh-huh.
So and that's beautiful, because intimacy is all that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Be able to feel so safe and supported that
Yeah.
he is there, that she is there.
Yeah.
To help me understand.
Exactly. And I cannot. Oh, Eve, I feel like you're dropping some real good stuff here, so we're gonna come back to it. But what I can't say enough is that we talk so much in all of these topics about authenticity, like what it comes down to in its base is this thing of authenticity.
That's the passion in us.
Oh my God, we're so passionate about authenticity. I mean, I am. I feel like it's why I'm here. I'm here for that. Like that's what I'm about.
Yeah.
But like what you discover with intimacy is it's about creating the space for your authentic expression, right? It's about you being able to show up in your wholeness, which means human, right? Which means imperfect, flawed, wounded, all of that, and says, I still extend to you unconditional regard. I extend to you love. I extend to you care, respect, reciprocity, mutuality. That's what intimacy does, is it says you can authentically be you in this space. Right? And the fear of the fear of intimacy is so much rooted to the fact that we never experienced what it is to have that kind of secure love with someone, which brings us into like these different attachment styles. There's secure, avoidant, and anxious, and those get broken down in like dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant, preoccupied anxious, right? Disorganized attachment. So, and then there's secure attachment. And what we're talking about with intimacy, when intimacy is really there and growing, that is how we are building security with ourselves.
Yeah.
Because intimacy first has to start here within ourselves. It's how we, that's why I see the foundation of it. One of them is self-love. It's how we are loving ourselves, how we are being compassionate to ourselves. It's how we can show up loving and compassionate to others. There's this saying, right? That's like, you can't love someone until you can love yourself. That's not true.
I don't think so either.
You can love people, but it's the level, it's the extent that you can love others is the extent that is up to the extent you can love yourself. Because you're not going to love someone more than you. Because if you think that you love someone more than you, then that's not actually love. that's an obligation. That's something else. That's not actual love. Love is about equality. It's equal. So you can't love someone more than you love yourself. So that is the extent. So this is what I'm learning for myself is like when it comes to self-love and self-compassion, if I don't have that here in myself pretty solid, then how I'm going to show up in relationship with other people is either making them more important than me, which gives them more authority over me, and then I'm giving my power away, which I love to get reminders from friends like, Sarah, you're giving your power away, bring it back. It's like to remember, like here, for you to have intimacy, it's got to be built here. And it's what you extend to other people, right? Especially in relationship. And the way you grow into that work is really about the work that you're also doing within yourself.
It's a healing.
It's the healing.
That's the soil, the grounded part is that. Is the healing. If you're not healed, you won't know what you need in a relationship. You won't know what really intimacy is. You won't know if you're with the right partner. You won't know if you're in the right relationship. You won't know it because you will just get whatever that is. And if they're like, brainwashing you, you think that's love. Right. Or if they're just showing you, love here and not tomorrow or not today. Right. Or, it's, you know what love is when you heal. Because that's the love that you're bringing to yourself. That's the love that you're like, okay, I love myself this way. This is what I want. This is what I need. And this is what it has to be communicated. Right. And this is how I know that I'm not with the right person. This is how I know that relationship is not going to happen. I mean, we know. We know, and yet we try. We know and we try. Why? Because we are loving. Because what we see inside is what we see in others. Right. And it's why we are so willingly trusting others. Right. Because you're like, okay, I love. Why can they not? Right. But when time goes by, I really, in my mind and in my heart, is like 3 months. When you're with a person for 3 months, in 3 months, you really know and you can see the red flags. So, for me, myself personally, I do not date anyone more than 3 months. If I see red flags, the first week, I'm gone. I'm gone. I am not like out. Gotta go. Because I feel it right here. I feel it right here. And growing our connection to ourselves. Like if you're not seeing those red flags quickly, right? You might have to go through a few patterns, right? Of relationship patterns. Because this is about building a muscle of connecting to yourself. Exactly. That's where these red flags come in. And how do you know to do that? Is by having those relationships that really help you see what you're lacking or where you need to be healed in order to have the right relationship with thyself, ourselves. So, and it has to happen, you know, if you're in a relationship where you don't feel love, where you don't feel seen, and that had to happen for you to know what you need in a relationship. Because that's the only way we know what we want and need is when we have those relationships that didn't work in the past in order to see myself, in order to know what I deserve. Because I am a whole person. I am not going to get a halfway person. There is no way. You know, I'm doing the work for myself. I would like the same for the person that I'm bringing into my life. So Eve, you said some stuff here.
you're gonna send this episode. Great. Definitely share this. And if this is resonating with any of you who are watching this or catching us on the replay, definitely share it. Share it out to someone who could use this message, who could have contact to intimacy and be looking at it and exploring it from these different lenses, because this is how we learn. And we're gonna get into like why this is important from a spiritual place. Like this is really about like who you are and the essence of who you are, why intimacy is so important. But like, okay, so he has taken you to a professional counselor to get to know more about each other due to a recent issue that happened over COVID that had breakdown of communication. Okay. And it's resolved. Didn't know what to expect with the session. Surprisingly, you felt more close to him after the session because you know how invested he is in your relationship. It's beautiful, yes. And that's the beautiful thing about going to therapy is like that is a sign of like I'm in this and willing to rumble through and be in the arena with you. Like that is huge.
Yeah.
He really wants to hear me and is willing to pay a professional to make me feel safe, convey exactly how I feel and think. I felt strong intimacy with him immediately after. Trust was restored, and you're back to checking in once a month with the journey and investing in your relationship, and you feel so blessed as a result. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes. And secure attachment. So like going back to this fear part, it's like secure attachment and relationship comes through doing the work.
Yeah.
It's going to therapy. Mm-hmm. It's getting like having a mediator, having someone else there who can create a space that can anchor you in to do this work with one another.
It's neutral.
It's about each of you investing in yourselves, right? And in your own healing. Because here's the thing. What is left unhealed and unresolved within you, you just continue to act out.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want secure relationship, if you want to know what love is, if you do your healing work. Do your healing work. That's where you actually start to tap into a secure relationship because you're building that security here, right? Which means that you're not operating out of wounds with other people, right? Around externally, which means that you're building better relationships because you're harboring a better connection with yourself, which means that you are then more open to moving into an intimate relationship with someone, right? And then you can build that intimacy from there. So it's critical.
It is critical. It is critical. So yeah, healing is important, but we're not saying either that that you are wounded and
something's wrong, like that you're wrong.
No, we're not saying that.
No.
Because like how Eve just, share with us her experience is like there can be, a wounded person, but it's understanding and being aware that I'm going through this, but I'm willing to work on it. Right? I'm going through that, but I'm sharing this with you. And that's where vulnerability comes.
Right.
Because it's the space to be open and it's the space that the other person is creating for that person to feel safe, seen and understood, and being that, that compassion that you see on the other person, but that person is willing to work for that.
Yeah, it's not about fixing yourself because there's nothing wrong with you.
No.
It's actually deprogramming the story, the fear, the lies that are coded on top that are keeping you from seeing your wholeness.
Yeah.
And the way that I'm discovering for myself when I recognize like I'm moving outside of worthiness with myself, right? If I'm not feeling whole within myself is when I stop prioritizing my own self-care, when I stop prioritizing or expressing my emotions, when I shut down or I don't say anything. Like forever, I would never talk about things. I would hold it all in, And I just remembered one day just realizing like I just need to reach out and talk about what's happening in the moment or where my head is, right? And I know that the more I started to do that, just the more reassurance I got from people that were like, thank you for letting me support you. Thank you for letting me be there. Thank you for sharing. And I love how you always tell me, like, you can share it 10 million times. Like, I'm here to listen, like, it doesn't matter if it's something that we're working through. We may have to say it again and again, but it's about allowing ourselves our own self-expression.
Yes.
When I notice that I'm not doing those things, that's when I know that I'm pulling away, right, into the wounds, and like all that fear stuff is like coming back. So, it's about working through. The healing work is really about how you are revealed to yourself, not fixed, revealed.
Yeah. And that's where the fear comes, when you're not healed.
Yeah.
Because if you're healed, you won't be afraid to show and express what's coming up in the moment. You won't be afraid to express what you need, your needs, your wants, your expectations, your all these things that it has to be said in order for intimacy to happen.
Yeah.
So just heal yourself and know that everything that you said is valid. Is valid. And that other person either sees it or it doesn't. And when you're being in this vulnerable, moment, and that person is judging you or making you feel ashamed or all these things, then it's not the right person. And it's okay. Right. It's okay. Know that you can go back to that self, to yourself, go back to here, go back to your baby, to your inner baby, and talk it out with her, because it's our bad trauma.
For them.
Him, she, them, it's yourself. The trauma. It's the trauma that is being triggered when we're not being seen, because that happened to us when we were little.
Right.
So it's just by understanding yourself,
yeah.
but know that it's valid for you to say what you want and need and feel at the moment.
Right.
You have to.
Right. And to bring this all home of like, why is this important from a spiritual level, is that intimacy is part of the path of self-actualization and self-realization. Like, this is when we talk about what it is to connect to your true self, right? How we learn who we are is in relationship. We learn who we are in relation to things, relation to experiences, and relation to other people.
Yes.
That's how we learn who we are. And so intimacy is this path where we get to learn and explore. It's about self-discovery. It's about us understanding who we are, coming into the key principles and elements of love and belonging that we are hardwired for. Love and belonging. That is what intimacy does. It allows us the ability to tap into our true nature and our true self. And how we learn how to love, and this is what I really appreciate about, all of my past relationships, is that it's in those really hard moments, right, when I uncover a deeper ability to lean into love, right? It's like where we discover how we can really love someone is when we can say, okay, I really love myself and I can hold you in love and I don't have to take things personally, right? And I can continue to stay open, right? Intimacy is that process. That's how I build intimacy with myself, right? Which allows you to stay open, knowing that like people are going to come in. Like this is something we talked about this week, and is like disappointment. Like people are going to come in and they're going to disappoint. It's just going to happen
all the time.
But it's how we have ourselves and hold ourselves. It's like how we have intimacy with ourselves. That's what I'm understanding too, this reparenting thing, right? Like that's a process of building intimacy with yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's like how we have ourselves in those moments is our ability to stay open for the next thing, to stay open for more connection, more what's the word I'm looking for? Abundance, more adventure, more, just all the things that you want to keep feeling and having and drawing and manifesting into your life come from that place through intimacy, right? And how we are playing with intimacy. So it's part of the path of self-realization.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest paths I ever walked in.
Right.
It's not easy.
It's not.
But to realize that the love comes within.
Yeah.
And to realize that, like Sarita says, there is the relationships that help you see who you really are and what you're really not gonna take.
Yeah.
Right? Who helps you realize what you want and need and how you're being loved and how you love yourself, right? Because if those relationships didn't happen, then I would continue, I think, to be in the same relationships if I wasn't, working on myself.
Mhm.
But I'm working on myself.
Mhm.
I know myself.
Mhm.
I know what I want and what I'm willing to take. I know what what I deserve, right? So when I come to that place where I find love within,
right here,
yeah, it's just the most beautiful thing that I don't know. I just feel the love right now. It's like so beautiful because anybody can come into my life and I'm gonna entertain the moment.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give that space for that person.
Mhm.
I'm gonna trust that person.
Yeah.
But I am not gonna entertain them to the point that I'm not being validated.
You don't compromise yourself.
You don't.
You can compromise things all day. Like, I like chocolate, you like vanilla. Let's do chocolate today and vanilla tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Compromise things. Never compromise yourself.
But if they're not meeting me where I am, I am not. I am not. And that's where the love, right?
Self-love.
The love that you have for yourself is where it comes and is telling you, Yesenia, that's not what you do or give yourself.
Yes.
So I don't think you should, entertain this anymore.
Yes.
It's time to live.
Yes.
So is that core, where you feel it like right here, and oh my God, it's the most beautiful thing is when you find yourself, when you're connected to yourself and your higher power.
Yes. Yes. So, Eve, I love that you are saying that this is exactly what your boyfriend said.
Thank
and you're
you
using
for
these sessions.
Sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience and how your relationship is growing. It's working towards secure attachment with yourself and secure attachment in a relationship. It does take work, but it's the most rewarding work you can do because it's about how you uncover love, and it's about going through life with someone who reinforces for you and how you reinforce for them wholeness and authenticity. Yeah. And that is that is a miracle to behold. Like when you are able to be in a relationship like that. And maybe some of you out there have a relationship where like you're listening to this, you're like, I got all of this. Feel free to share your story, because the thing is people can talk and complain all day about the things that don't work out. And there are not enough stories out there of like real love, right? Real actual love, and stories out there about like how to overcome these things. So would love to hear from you as well.
So I would like to share this last thing that I heard Dr. Shafali.
Yes, Shafali.
Dr. Shafali.
Love her.
I love her. She is not only
book,
beautiful from
A Radical
the outside.
Awakening. So good. Yes.
She's not only beautiful from the outside, she's an amazing, beautiful person inside. She's so grounded.
Conscious.
She's so conscious.
Aware.
I just love her.
She's on my list of people if I could have coffee with.
Oh my God, the things she will tell us. Girl, you need to wake up more.
Dropping truth bombs over and over.
So this is what she said. She said, conscious intimacy can only happen. It can happen, and it's only when we are deeply intimate with ourselves, that we are in a sacred marriage with our own inner being, that we can dare to aspire for intimacy with any other living being on earth. Oof. So it starts from here. Right here. When she said those words, I'm like,
yes, there it is. And there.
That's the answer.
Therein lies the rub. There it is.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. We love you so much.
Sending you love.
Sending you lots of love. And always there to remind you to dive in and dig deep for your own love, your self-love, and grow in that. And have a wonderful week, you all. We'll see you next Monday. We are talking about... What are we talking about? Oh gosh, we're almost in November. It's so crazy. Oh, we're talking about dating potential.
Oh yeah, dating potential.
Oh gosh, yeah, this is a good topic.
Dating potential.
Dating potential. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it. So join us next week, and yeah, sending you lots of love, lots of hearts. Thank you for joining us. Share this with somebody. And yes, Eve, we are on YouTube. If you want more content like this, please make sure to go to our YouTube channel, Meant for More, on YouTube. That's Meant for More, MOORE. And yeah, join the conversation. We love you, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye bye.